Hey, deep divers! Ready for another deep dive.
Absolutely. I'm excited for this one.
This time, we're tackling forklift operator interviews. Got those questions lined up.
You bet. This is a topic a lot of people want to know more about.
So much info out there, though. Videos, those long manuals, even those, what are they called, interview coaches on YouTube?
Yeah, it can be overwhelming.
That's why we're here. You sent over some great stuff, by the way, especially that video from, was it Richard, the interview coach?
Yes. He's got some great advice.
He does, though I gotta say, these videos, sometimes they're a bit much. We're all busy people.
Right. We don't always have time to watch a whole seminar.
Exactly. But don't worry, deep divers. We watched it so you don't have to. And let me tell you, Richard, he really emphasized this one point.
What's that?
It's not just about driving the forklift.
Oh, absolutely not.
It's about showing them, the hiring managers, that you're the king or queen of safety.
Totally. You want them to feel like this is the person we need handling our equipment.
Exactly. And you know me, I love to break things down, so let's get into the specifics. Like, remember that question Richard talked about? The whole, how do you ensure the safe operation of your forklift?
Oh, yeah, that's a classic.
It seems simple, right?
It does, but there's a real art to answering it well.
Because anyone can memorize a list of safety rules, right?
Right.
But you got to go deeper.
It's about showing them you live and breathe safety.
Yes. Like, remember when he talked about PPE? And he made a point of saying the whole thing. Personal protective equipment.
It's all about those little details.
It's those details that say, this person, detail-oriented, we can trust them.
Absolutely. It's like before you even step onto that forklift, you've got this mental checklist.
Yeah.
Pre-operation checks, right?
Yes.
Assessing the load, communicating with your team.
Making sure you've got your personal protective equipment. It
Yeah.
shows you're proactive.
Exactly.
Not just reacting to problems.
You're anticipating them.
And Richard said something else that really stuck with me.
What was that?
It's about continuous... What was the word?
Continuous professional development.
Yes. So you're not just saying, this is what I know now.
Right.
You're saying, I'm in it for the long haul. I'm always learning.
It shows commitment. And speaking of commitment, let's talk about that other big question. Tell me about yourself.
Ooh, yeah, that one can be tricky.
It's all about that elevator pitch. Short, sweet, to the point.
And he used those great words like, what was it? Diligent, safety-focused.
Highly reliable.
You're speaking their language.
Exactly. You get it.
Yeah.
But it's not just about, like, sounding good,
Yeah.
right? It's about showing them you really want this job.
Exactly. And Richard had some great advice about that, particularly for that question. You know, why do you want to be a forklift operator?
Oh, yeah, that's when you got to be ready for it.
It's easy to fall into those, like, generic answers.
Oh, I'm a hard worker? I like driving.
Right, exactly. But this is your chance to really connect the dots, show them you understand what this job really entails.
The demands, the pace, even the maybe not so glamorous parts.
Because let's face it, it's not always easy, right?
Not always.
But you're showing them you're up for the challenge.
You're not just looking for any job. You want this job. Exactly. And you're not just driving. You're responsible for those loads, the safety of others.
It's like you said earlier, you're a key part of the whole operation.
Right. Okay, so moving on. What did you think of his advice on, what was the question? Something about the most important qualities.
Oh, you mean like what makes a good forklift operator?
Yes, that one. It seems straightforward, but...
It can trip you up if you're not careful.
Totally. But he had some good points, like tailoring your answer, always, to the job description, of course.
Right, of course.
But then he mentioned a few key areas. Safety awareness, naturally.
Of course. Oh.
Teamwork, manual dexterity.
Oh, right, because you got to be good with your hands.
Exactly. And that whole thing about, what do you call it, commercial awareness.
So you understand the business side of things?
Yep. Right. And this is where I think giving specific examples is key.
Show, don't tell.
Exactly. Don't just say you're a team player. Give them a situation where you had to work with others, maybe under pressure.
Okay, so you've aced those questions so far, right?
Yes.
You're nailing the interview. Now let's talk about the actual work.
The hands-on stuff.
Yeah, because you got to know how to handle those heavy loads safely.
Right, and efficiently. And remember how much Richard stressed that methodical approach?
Safety first, always.
Exactly. No cutting corners.
And he even got into the nitty-gritty, like weight distribution, center of gravity.
Well, because you need to understand the physics of it, right?
It's not just about muscle. It's about using your brain, too.
Right. And don't underestimate the importance of communication. You're not working in isolation.
No.
You've got to be in sync with everyone on the floor.
Especially in a busy warehouse, that's
Yeah.
a recipe for disaster if you're not communicating.
Exactly. Speaking of tricky situations, there was another question he addressed that I thought was really interesting.
It was that whole thing about, like, what do you do if you've got a coworker, maybe they're not pulling their weight or something?
Oh, right, handling difficult coworkers.
Because that's a reality,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially in a high-stress environment like a warehouse. Tensions can run high.
Exactly. And you don't want to seem like you're, a complainer,
Right. You have to strike that balance.
but you also got to show them you can handle those situations.
And Richard's advice there was spot on. You want to frame it in a way that shows you're a problem solver.
You're not afraid of a little conflict.
Exactly. But you're going to handle it professionally.
Keep those forklifts moving.
Exactly. Now, before we wrap things up, I wanted to circle back to something else Richard mentioned. It's easy to overlook, but
What's that?
asking questions at the end of the interview.
Oh, that's so important.
It's amazing how many people forget that part.
They get so caught up in answering their questions.
Right. But it's a two-way street.
You're interviewing them too.
Exactly. And asking good questions shows you're really engaged.
You're interested.
You're already thinking about how you'd fit into the team.
Like, okay, I'm already picturing myself here. What's next?
Right.
Hmm.
And he gave some great examples, like asking about the challenges the team's facing,
Or what opportunities there are to learn and grow.
because that shows you're invested in the long term.
Exactly. Okay, so deep divers. We've covered a lot of ground here.
We have
But the big takeaway, if you're heading into that forklift operator interview,
safety first,
skill second.
and don't forget that interview confidence.
You got this.
Absolutely.
All right, deep divers, until next time, keep those forklifts rolling.